I used to measure morning by the weight of silk on my skin and the way the Persian rug sighed under my bare feet. In that house, light entered like a guest with money, through tall windows, across gold-plated mirrors, over a bed wide enough to lose a quarrel in. I scrolled through other women's lives with one polished finger, the glass of my phone cool and obedient under my thumb. Another shopping spree in Paris. A girl wrote over a Hermes bag that looked like it could swallow a month of a market woman's life. I double-tapped and felt the small pleasure light up my brain. Once, I said out loud to nobody, 2 months since Dubai, a queen must not starve. I was a woman fed by velvet and air conditioners, the kind who learned to complain about tea that was 69 instead of 75 degrees. I was not born careless. I trained for it. Luxury is a school with soft chairs. Madam, good morning, Felicia said, knocking like a prayer. 3 light taps, hope in each one. What is it? Your breakfast is ready, Ma, she whispered, and I could smell it before I saw it. The butter sigh of a croissant, the lift of fresh orange, the sweetness of a tea that had traveled with stories from another country. I sipped and frowned, and my mouth found the old shape of disdain. This is not hot enough. Do you want my throat to fall asleep? She made herself smaller and carried the tray away, and I lay back against pillows that remembered the weight of my laziness. Abu came home that night with Lagos dust on his shoes, the kind of dust that sticks to ambition. Shopping bags like colourful gossip were spread across our living room. He stood in the doorway, looking at them the way a father looks at a child who has set fire to a curtain to see how bright it can get. Imade, he said. His voice had a low drum in it, the one he saved for bad numbers and stubborn deals. Welcome, darling, I said, not looking up, because sometimes indifference is the only silk that fits. What's all this? New arrivals, my stylist insisted. An upgrade is a form of worship. You've spent 10 million naira in 5 days, he said, and the room tilted. Not because the number shocked me, but because his face looked like mourning. So, he said, and there was a silence between us that smelled like metal. Do you ever think about saving, investing, doing something that holds you up if I fall? I didn't marry suffering, I said. I married you. He pressed his fingers into his temple, like he was searching for a door. Life is a road with surprises, matey. I'm asking you to hold a steering wheel. Don't blaspheme. I laughed. You, richer than Dangote, talking about falling. I beg, let's be serious. It was a joke I had told 1,000 times, and every time it had dissolved the air. This time it hung there like smoke with no wind. He stared at me for a long breath. I pray you don't regret this, he said, and something in me laughed again, because regret was a word I only wore for other people. The day life changed. The house smelled of jollof and grilled chicken, and my old familiar thought, I'll eat when I want. It was noon, wearing the costume of mourning. Felicia's knock trembled. Madam, she started, and even before she finished, my heart picked up its wrapper and ran. Then the phone rang, and a hospital voice put a sheet over my life. We regret to inform you. Remains mortuary. I did not know a human body could howl like that. The scream left me and haunted the corners of the mansion. People came, cousins, colleagues, men who said, my condolences, like the words had teeth. Women who patted my shoulder and pressed flat envelopes into my palm. Grief made the house smaller. Grief also has a smell, wet cloth, metal, breath that has forgotten to leave. For 3 days my eyes were taps running on their own. On the 4th day, a call came, brisk as a ledger. Hospital and mortuary fees, 3.5 million. I looked at my son, sleeping with his mouth open, a little crescent of milk at the corner, and I moved money with fingers that shook. I kept telling myself the house would hold me. I kept telling myself Abu would not leave me badly arranged. Then men with briefcases and bank names rang the bell like it was a door to a courtroom. Loan, collateral, frozen funds. The mansion we had filled with laughter and imported rugs belonged to numbers now, not to us. The words moved through me like cold water. Within 24 hours, one of them said kindly, like a man announcing rain to a woman standing in fire. By night the house had learned the sound of emptiness. The staff packed quietly, folding their loyalty into suitcases. Musa, our driver, looked at me with eyes that had watched me try to tip him with neglect. "Madam, we go find another work," he said. "And kindness can be a knife when you haven't been feeding it." Felicia hugged me and whispered, "I wanted to stay, but my brother, school fees." The chandelier's light fell on my jewelry boxes as I opened them, and gold stared back with the blunt honesty of metal. I filled a bag with the shine of my old self. I took my son's hand, hailed a taxi, and watched the gate swallow us, as if we were a rumor it was finally tired of hearing. My mother's house greeted me with a broom and a stern face. "This is not your mansion," she said. "Sweep." I felt the old child in me rise to argue, and then sit down. Pride is a high heel on cracked pavement. You can wear it, but the street will win. My mother watched me sweep like an exam invigilator. When I finished, she looked past the clean floor to the place in me where nothing had been touched. "Bathe your child," she said. My hands learned him all over again. The small weight of a shoulder, the way boys make a sound like a question when water finds their eyes. In the night, I ate eba and okra soup slowly. The taste simple and true, like a story without a caption. I thought of champagne and laughed, and the laugh sounded like a cough. "What will you do?" my mother asked. Tin plate shining dull under a bulb that blinked as if the light itself was nervous. "I have no money. You have bags that could build a kiosk," she said. Not cruel, only precise. "You have jewelry that could buy beans. You have hands." I stared at her, and for the first time since Abu died, I saw the woman who had raised me by selling clothes in the sun. I saw bone under skin, strength with no filter. "Sell them," she said, "or sit and starve. Choose one." I chose the living. A reseller came with a scale disguised as a smile. I lined my old life on the bed. Bags that had flown first class. Shoes that had walked only on soft floors. Necklaces that had been kissed by nightclub lights. The money he counted could fit inside the smallest purse I sold him. But it was money. It was the sound of a door not closing. We rented a small shop with a corrugated roof that sang when the rain came. I stocked it with the colors of survival. Brown rice in sacks. Beans like soft stones. Tomatoes stacked like little red suns. Yams with skin like old maps. Palm oil in bottles that held light. The first day, a woman came with a baby tied to her back and asked for a cup of geri. I scooped it slowly, the way you bow at an altar for the first time. Money exchanged hands, a soft clap. I smiled a small shaky smile. Business is a language. I was learning it syllable by syllable. I woke before the sun and fought for a place in the market crowd, haggling with voices older than sense. The sky would go grey, then chalk, then gold over Abuja, and I would unlock the shop and breathe like a woman about to sing. I learned to keep a ledger. The paper listened better than people. I learned the weight of coins and the story in people's faces when they counted change twice. Men who had waved me aside in my other life called me auntie with respect because my prices were fair. I did not post any of it. A life lived is content enough. On the day we gathered to bury Abu, her mutton sat in the air like an old auntie refusing to leave. The cemetery smelled of dust and psalm, and I held my son's hand, the way a drowning woman holds a rope. The coffin's shine was vulgar in that dry light. Then a scream ripped the quiet open. Heads turned, and there he was, walking toward us on legs I had buried in my heart. Abu, alive in the middle of my widowhood. The world went soft. When it sharpened again, he was holding my wrist gently, and I was a river refusing banks. It made, he said. Come, let me explain. No, I said, and my voice surprised me with its spine. Explain here. If I suffered publicly, let the truth bathe in the same sun. He hesitated. Men always do. Before they cut a rope, they tied themselves. Then he said the sentence that reorganized the air. I faked my death. Time did the thing it does in films. Slowed, stretched, allowed faces to rearrange themselves into disbelief and anger and curiosity. I swallowed the dust of shock. Why? I asked, and what I meant was, how dare you? I tried to warn you, he said, and there was sorrow in the edges of his eyes. I begged you to build something with your hands. I set up work. You laughed at my warnings. Life is not guaranteed. I needed you to know how to hold yourself if I fell. You let me drown, I said. You watched me. How? I never left completely, he confessed. I had people keeping an eye. When the bank came, I was 2 cars down. When you moved to your mother's, I followed far behind. When you opened your shop, I watched you count change with the concentration of a scholar. I cried for you, Imade. I cried for the woman I married and the woman you became. Anger and understanding wrestled inside me like 2 siblings with my face. I wanted to slap him and thank him and collapse into him and leave him there to explain until his tongue blistered. My chest was tight with old silk and new scar. I did not do it to break you, he said quietly. I did it to unbreak you. Look at you. He lifted my palm, and my hand smelled faintly of palm oil and ledger ink. You are standing on your own legs. I closed my eyes, and behind the dark, I saw Felicia's careful hands, the bank manager's pity, the way Mama pressed a broom into my palm like holy water, the first cup of Gary, my boy's laughter echoing in a shop that did not care about hashtags. I saw the foolishness that had wrapped me, and the hunger that had taught me to chew. When I opened my eyes, the cemetery and its slow trees watched us. My mother stood with my son on her hip. The harmattan lifted a little, as if the scene also surprised the weather. I don't know if I can forgive you, I said, because truth needs air. Take your time, he answered, and there was no flinch in him now. I never stopped loving you. Neither did I whispered, surprised by how easily the words found me. People clapped because Nigerians clap at resurrection and confession. It is our way of telling the universe we are still here. In the weeks that followed, we stitched life with deliberate hands. He returned gifts disguised as apologies. Apologies disguised as gifts. He opened a shopping mall with my name, Olowo Ori, in small letters, hidden somewhere on a wall. As if to remind me money likes to flirt with pride. I hired staff and paid them on time. I kept books and slept light. I held meetings with women who smelled of shea butter and hustle. We argued about margins and sunlight, and whether tomatoes should sit left or right. I learned to say, let me think, in a voice that remembered to be kind. At night, when the city's noise became a blanket, I lay in a bed that did not swallow me, and I listened to my son breathing, and to the silence between Abu and me, he on his side with the newspaper that made him look older, me on mine with a pen that kept finding paper even in the dark. Once he whispered, "Do you hate me less?" And I said, "I understand you more." It was not romance, but it was a kind of love that can walk long distances without holding anyone's hand. I visit the old mansion sometimes. In my head, it is a museum now, a place where lavishness hangs on the wall, beautiful and useless. I prefer the market, the way women laugh with their mouths open, the way men count change with their heads down, the way a child will pause at a stack of sweets like prayer. I like the sound of bags filling with food and future. I like when an old woman calls me my daughter and means it. I like the texture of mornings, where water boils and floors get swept and rooms smell of work. I like this version of me, the the one with dust in the hem of her wrapper and purpose under her tongue. Sometimes I ask the girl I was to sit with me on the shop stool. She looks at the ledger and makes a face. "Where are the Paris photos?" she asks. "Where is the tea at exactly 75 degrees? I point at my boy doing homework on the counter, at a woman counting coins without shame, at the way the evening light falls on tomatoes like blessing. Here," I say, "here is what money cannot taste like." Abu buys me gifts still, because love speaks all languages it can. I put them away like stories, beautiful, folded, waiting for the right day. On Sundays, we take Suya home from a man whose hands shine with oil and experience. We eat with our fingers, and our son laughs with pepper on his lips. My mother sits in the corner and nods as if she invented redemption. In the small living room, night gathers gently. The fan mutters its old song, and Abuja's stubborn stars remember to come out one by one. People ask me now to tell the story. I tell it without perfume. I tell them the smell of hospital corridors and the color of bank envelopes. I tell them the sound money makes when it leaves. I tell them about a broom and a ledger and a market stall with a corrugated roof that grumbles at rain. I tell them about a man who faked a death and a woman who found a life. I tell them that grief will rearrange your furniture and also your soul. I tell them that forgiveness is not a sudden light. It is a switch you move with a hesitant finger, and then move again the next night, and the next, until the room remembers how to glow. I do not excuse deceit. I do not decorate it. But I know what my own eyes learned, that comfort can be a thief, that love can be a stern teacher, that survival is a language best learned before the exam, that pride will not cook beans, that money is a guest. Welcome it, seat it, make it comfortable, but do not hand it the keys to your life. I know now that a woman's hands are altars, that a child's laughter is insurance, that a shop ledger can become a diary of small victories. I know that I am not the silk on my shoulders, but the spine under it. In another life, I might have told you about perfumes and private lounges, and the way a glass of champagne looks when you hold it against a city. In this life, I will tell you about the way a market wakes, how tomatoes carry sunrise, how palm oil holds the afternoon inside it. I will tell you how a widow learned to become a woman before she became a bride again. I will tell you how a mansion is a room with walls until responsibility moves in and makes it a home. I will tell you how a woman can walk out of a gate with a child in one arm and a bag of jewelry in the other, and still arrive somewhere she can call the beginning. If you stand outside my shop at dusk, you will hear it, the low hum of two generators arguing softly, the laugh of a girl with red dust on her sandals, the whistle of a boy selling groundnuts, the click of my pen as I close the ledger. You will smell fried plantain, kerosene, soap, rain beginning somewhere far. You will see my boy wave, because he believes waving is how you keep luck friendly. You might see Abu lean in the doorway with a bag in his hand that he pretends is heavy. You will see me, dark-skinned, head wrapped tight like a promise, eyes steady, hands busy, counting, greeting, living. And in the thin blue seam between evening and night, you will hear the quiet sound of a heart forgiving a little more than yesterday and beating strong enough to carry tomorrow. I didn't sleep the night before the mall opened. I paced the tiles until my footsteps learned the echo of responsibility. The sign above the glass doors glowed softly in the dark. Letters I could trace with my finger and feel a new name wrap itself around my bones. I wore a simple dress and tied my headscarf firm. I wanted to meet the day as a woman who works, not a woman who waits. When morning rose, it brought the city with it. Hawkers whistling, buses coughing dust into the air, a chorus of bargaining traveling like birds. I stood beside the entrance and watched my staff arrive one by one, each face lit by the pale gold of early light. "Good morning, Ma," they said. I answered each person by name, a quiet promise tucked inside their greeting. By noon, the aisles hummed with feet and whispers. A woman held a bar of soap and turned it in her hand the way you turn a new decision. A man weighed rice and told his small daughter to hold the bag with both hands. 2 palms Ada, like prayer. I kept the back office door open so I could hear life happening. The ledger sat in front of me, the lines ready to receive. The air conditioning hummed like a well-fed cat. I kept it low on purpose. Abuja Heat should not forget who it is. The first receipt spit out of the small printer and curled on itself like a sleeping child. I smoothed it flat, wrote the total slowly. You don't rush the thing that will feed you. Felicia came at noon and stood at the doorway like a question. Her dress was ironed twice. You could see the care. Madam, she whispered, afraid to step into a life she had watched from far. Something warm rose in me and settled in my throat. Come, I said. We are hiring people who know where the tea should really be, hot enough to wake a person who has been sleeping in her own life. She laughed, shoulders loosening. I took her to the staff room, showed her the roster, and wrote her name with a flourish I had learned from Payne. You will manage front of house, and teach them to greet with respect that doesn't bend their back. She touched my elbow, gently, the old language of thanks. Abu arrived later with meat, pie for everyone, and tried to look like a man who had not interrupted the moon before. He stood in the doorway and caught my eye, and we shared a small nod that tasted almost like forgiveness. You are doing well, he said. I shrugged, because pride, even when honest, must be eaten slowly. We are trying. The 3rd week brought a test I did not know I had been studying for. A roomer came ahead of the men. 2 boys with quick eyes and a hungry look. Faces wrapped in black cloth that tried and failed to erase their mother's features. They slipped in through the side entrance, one holding a small knife that trembled like his spirit. I saw them in the security mirror before they saw themselves. Panic is loud. Training is quiet. I stepped into the aisle with the calm a child borrows from her mother's lap. My sons, I said, voice steady as a scale. Drop it. You don't want trouble with a woman who has survived her life. One laughed, too high. The other didn't laugh at all. I kept going. You have mothers. I can hear them praying even now. There is work here, if you're brave enough to sweat. There is jail if you're foolish enough to pretend your hunger is a weapon. Felicia had already called Musa. He appeared behind them, like a wall you didn't know was there. The boy with the knife put it down first. When the police came, I pleaded like a sister. Give me one chance with them, I said. Let me hire their hunger. The officer looked at me, then at their thin wrists. He sighed and wrote something in a book that looked tired. We signed papers that felt like a future. I put the boys on the cleaning crew. Mops can teach a person how to hold a thing steady. That night, after the shutters came down, I sat on the floor of the storeroom, with my back against sacks of beans. The concrete was cool through my wrapper. My palms still remembered the tremble of that small blade. Abu slid down onto the floor beside me, knees cracking like a confession. You were brave, he said. I was afraid, I answered. But fear is just a room with the light off. I turned it on. He reached for my hand, and we let our fingers rest beside each other, not intertwined. 2 separate lives practicing how to sit together without competing for breath. The next month, my son fell ill. Fever isn't loud. It is persistent. It sits by the bed and asks you to count your mistakes. His skin burned and his eyes went glassy, and the memory of a hospital voice remains. Mortuary, regret to inform, flashed behind my forehead like lightning with nowhere to go. I wrapped him in a cloth my mother had blessed with palm oil and prayer. We sped through evening traffic. Abuja opened its tired arms. In the waiting room, a television laughed cruelly. I held my boy and sang the song my grandmother used when Harmattan cracked our mouths. The doctor was a woman with wrists that could hold grief. It's malaria, Mama, she said. He came on time. He will be fine. I pressed my forehead to my son's. and whispered a promise I hadn't known I still owned. I will not lie to you about life, but I will hold you while it tells the truth. When we brought him home, the mole ran without me for 2 days, Felicia at the desk, the boys with the mops moving like men who had found a use for their bones, Musa, lifting sacks with a care he used to save for steering wheels. I watched from the office camera and felt a relief so pure it made me cry. Work that needs only you is a trap. Work that can live while you sleep is a blessing. I wrote it down in the margin of the ledger, like a proverb I didn't want to forget. Abu asked me for something I didn't expect. A gathering. Call your mother, he said. Call Felicia. Call anyone who saw you crawl and now watches you stand. I want to say, I am sorry with my mouth, not with money. We met in the small hall beside the market mosque, the air full of spice and diesel. He stood in front, a man heavy with his own name. I did a cruel thing, he said. I dressed a lesson in a shroud. I don't regret who Imade became. I regret the path I forced her to walk alone. My mother lifted her chin and gave one slow, satisfied nod that said, I raised truth in you eventually. I touched Abu's arm later, a brief press. We will not spend our life returning to this day, I said. We will let it sit like a stone at the bottom of our river. The water will know it, but it will keep moving. A fire took part of the market the following Harmattan. It moved quick, greedy for wood and dream. I woke to shouts and the smell of things turning to story. We ran with buckets. We formed a line. We coughed and prayed into our elbows. When the flames finally knelt, what was left looked like aftermath and stubbornness. Women stood in the grey morning, holding what they could. Bent spoons, unburnt onions, like relics. We start again, I said, loud enough for the ash to hear. We opened the mall storeroom and gave credit, the way a river gives itself to the thirsty, carefully, continuously. We made a list on cardboard, names and tallies, and I wrote, pay when you can. The first day, nobody paid. The second, one woman came with coins wrapped in cloth. For what you trusted me with, she said. The third day, men brought wooden nails. The fourth, I heard laughter again over the shape of new roofs. This is how communities perform resurrection, not in one loud moment, but in many small ones that insist on returning morning to the place where night got arrogant. I traveled back to the mansion one afternoon, not to enter, just to stand across the road and look at the gate. A new family lived there now. Children's voices rose and fell like birds in love with a tree. I thought I would feel pierced by envy. Instead, I felt a sharp, clean gratitude. I took out my phone and typed a note to myself. If you ever start to believe that comfort is character, come and stand at this gate and listen to strangers laugh. Go home. Home is a small apartment with plants that lean toward the window and a kitchen that smells of pepper and purpose. It is a boy doing homework with his tongue tucked in the corner of his mouth, like concentration is a flavor. It is a man who brings tomatoes from a roadside cellar and doesn't pretend he negotiated the price better than me. It is a ledger and a calendar and a basket of receipts that tell the story of a woman's second life. It is the mole light flicking on in the morning, the staff sign-in sheet catching names like seeds, the shock and pleasure of numbers that make sense. Sometimes younger women come to my office with nails like small knives and confidence that walks ahead of them. They sit on the chair and cross their legs and ask how to be me. I smile and push the ledger toward them. Can you learn to love this? I ask. They make faces. And this? I hold up a broom. They laugh. I tell them about selling bags that still smelled of perfume, about waking before prayer, about counting change twice, about fear with a knife and a woman who spoke to it, about a mother who believes sweeping is therapy. I do not mention Paris. I tell them about the market at dawn. If they stay, if they come back the next day without their nails, if they ask for the stock list instead of the selfie angle, I train them. If not, I give them a bottle of water for the road and wish them a gentle lesson. When the city sleeps badly and the generators argue too loudly, I sit by the window and write lines I cannot say out loud in the day. I write to the girl I was. It was sweet and it was numb. I write to the woman I am. You are not saved by suffering. You are shaped by responsibility. I write to my son. If you love a woman, do not teach her with pain. Walk beside her until the road itself does the talking. I write to Abu. We will never use the word test in this house. We will use the word practice. We will practice tenderness, accountability, joy, repair. The truth is simple and heavy. Money is loud, but meaning is patient. I have been both a woman who wasted and a woman who watered. The second life tastes better. It tastes like the first sip of tea at the exact right heat. Like a kara bought from a woman whose oil is always clean. Like rain after weeks of prayers muttered under breath. It tastes like waking your own child for school and tying his laces tight. Like a staff meeting where laughter does not mean betrayal. Like the softness that sits at the end of a long, hard day and says, "Well done. If you pass the mall tomorrow, look for a woman at the entrance with a head wrap tied like a crown that has learned humility. She will be greeting a supplier or settling a dispute with a smile that does not leak power, or reminding a cashier gently that every receipt is a story. She will look up as you pass and nod, the way we nod in this city, chin slightly forward, eyes saying I see you. That woman is me, taller now without any new inches, heavier only in the places that carry dignity. And when evening comes and makes the glass doors glow, she will lock them with gratitude, tuck the keys into a pocket that also holds a small prayer, and walk home with a bag of oranges and bread, the night wind combing her thoughts, the whole city whispering its tired, faithful, beautiful chorus. Tomorrow, tomorrow, tomorrow.